welcoming to join our first job seminar given by Dr.江. And it's our pleasure to have him here that share of his recent research. And today, in the beginning, Nan will give a public lecture or seminar as now. And then afterwards, there will be a closed-door discussions with IPCS faculties. Then later on, he will have a teaching performance with the students, and of course, some of the faculties. If you want, you can stay to join for about 20 minutes. Then later on will be a discussion with all the IPCS students. Okay. So let me briefly introduce Nan. Right now, he's a research associate under NSTC, our workaway big projects, net zero solution scientific research. As a research associate from December last year till now. And he got his PhD from UC Santa Cruz. And with the title actually, is, today's topic is, I think most of them is from your dissertations about exploring the coexistence of food solutions in malnutrition in the Philippines. From the title you can see he has some field works in the Philippines and talking to those farmers all over the Philippines how can using these communications to solve some of the issues we are facing. And Nan also graduated from NTU Sociology Department back to 2006, and then master's in Tsinghua University. Afterwards, he went to, as I mentioned, UC Santa Cruz as a PhD. Okay, with that, let's welcome Nan first.
And, please. I will just start. So let me time myself. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So thanks for being here. I'm江顺Nan. So it's truly my honor to have the opportunity to be here presenting some of my research output in the past few years. So can you hear me? Okay. So the title of the presentation today will be Unearthing the Coexistence of Agrifood Solutions to Malnutrition in the Philippines toward a proposal of problem solution and analytical framework. And this is mainly based on my dissertation carried out in the Philippines. So before I delve into the details of my research, I want to briefly introduce my research background. So I'm a social science researcher. Although trained as a sociologist, I've been exposed to other disciplines in social sciences and beyond through various collaboration with scholars in different disciplines, including geography, ecology, agricultural science, nutrition science, education, and so on. My research area revolves around three specific subfields. The first one is social studies of science and technology, or STS, international development studies, and agrifood studies. And in the past few years, I've been working specifically on two research issues. The first one is how the development agencies or governments mobilize or utilize science, technology, and innovation for sustainable development, and what the social impact may be. And the second issue is the dynamic relationship between global agricultural development and issues regarding human health, such as food security, malnutrition, food safety, hunger, and famine. So today's presentation will be the nexus of these two research issues. So I want to begin the discussion with this recent debate surrounding the 2021 UN World Food System Summit. So during the summit, one of the organizers had an interview, and the interview became a news article published in this website. And during the interview, the reporter asked a question like this. So it says, the summit will probably once again bring together conflicting schools of thought, such as the representatives of agroecology on the one hand and the advocates of a more conventional or technologically oriented agriculture on the other hand. So how will this be handled at the summit? And the organizer responded in quite some strong terms, and that's why it became the topic of this news article. So it says, this summit must not become boggled down in ideological battles. So what this organizer means is that he thinks that the future of food security is too important for any ideological conflict. So every agricultural approach should put down their ideological differences and try to work together to solve the problem of the future of food. But after the news article was published, then two agriculture scholars, so they are the editors of this influential journal called Agriculture and Sustainable Food Systems. So they published an editorial criticizing and responding to this organizer's viewpoint. And this is a quote from that editorial. So what they say is that agroecology appears relegated to being one more tool in a toolbox dominated by genetic engineering, digital frameworks, big data, and new technological innovations. So what they mean is that they do not agree that we should all put down our ideological difference. Because for them, the ideology is the core value of agroecology. And if they give up the value, then they will just become the tool in a toolbox. And so this debate reveals two seemingly opposite trends in the development field. So one is that the development agencies and governments, they have a tendency or the urgency to call for many more potential solutions through different channels like competitions or different startups. So this is another example. From publication, so this table is from a publication published by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization in 2017. So the book is titled Nutrition, Sensitive Agriculture, and Food Systems in Practice. So as you can see on this table, so the FAO collected various kinds of interventions in this table as a catalog of solutions that they think could solve the problem of nutrition through agricultural interventions. And as I highlighted here, so some ideologically quite different or conflicting interventions are put together by FAO, like between the biodiversity for food and nutrition or biopurification, which is mainly based on traditional breeding, co-breeding, or genetic modification. So in another trend is that there's a persistent divide among some specific solutions in the development field. So I'm using agricultural development as an example. Since 1980s, there has been a divide between industrial agriculture and alternative agriculture. And then this divide evolves into different kinds of framing, like conventional farming and organic farming, or precision agriculture and agroecology. So even when everyone agrees that sustainable agriculture is the main goal that we should follow, there is still a difference between sustainable agricultural intensification or ecological intensification. So these two seemingly opposite trends in the national development field. This paper argues that these trends, at the core of the issue, is actually how could scholars analyze and understand these coexisting solutions, and more importantly, how does the coexistence of solutions impact the process of how we could solve development problems. So based on this question, it sounds common sense that there must be multiple solutions coexisting for a particular social or development problem. But surprisingly, in the current social sciences literature, there has not been a satisfying framework trying to understand or analyze coexisting solutions. So broadly speaking, there are two main approaches. So the first one is what I call the critical scholars. So they are mainly from economics, public nutrition, or sustainability studies. So what they usually do is to try to utilize some kind of cost and benefit analysis to compare different solutions and decide which one may be a better solution. But they usually overlook the internal contentions or connections between solutions. And in contrast is the critical scholars. They are usually from critical development studies or science and technology studies. So they usually focus on the most problematic solution, usually based on emerging technology such as geoengineering or genetic modification or nanotechnology. And they usually offer strong critiques of these problematic solutions without constructive solutions. And they sometimes also overlook some mundane yet commonly adopted solutions. So to address the shortfall of these two approaches, this research tries to develop a new analytical framework. So right now I call it the problem solution analytical framework. And this is based on some STS scholars theorizing of polarization. But I'm not going to get into the details of this. But in general, there are three aspects in this analytical framework. The first one is to try to understand the historical legacy of the coexistence of these solutions. And the second one is to examine the diverse ways of project localization. And the third one is to examine the shared infrastructure that could support the development of all these coexisting solutions. So based on this analytical framework, the research agenda of this research is like this. So first I target 5 contemporary Agrifood solutions to malnutrition in the Philippines. And then I follow the development trajectory of these 5 solutions and explore the history of the 5 Agrifood approaches that these projects are based on. And finally, I also examine the shared infrastructure that could support the operation of these solutions. Okay, so the first question based on this research agenda would be, so why the Philippines? So why the Philippines? And there's a lot I can share with about the Philippines. But in short, the main reason is that there's a long history of international development interventions in the Philippines because of the US colonial history. And that means a lot of agricultural development interventions there beginning in the beginning of 19th century, and also lots of nutrition interventions. And another reason is, so this chart shows the status of malnutrition in the Philippines in the past 3 decades. And as you can see, there are 4 types of malnutrition on this chart. So underweight, stunting, wasting. So usually these 3, we call it undernutrition. And overweight for height. So usually it means obesity or overweight. So usually we call it overnutrition. So as you can see the trend, beginning in the 1980s, the trend of undernutrition, although it's decreasing a little bit, but it's sustained. And even in the past few years, it's even increased a little bit. And at the same time, there is also an emerging trend of overnutrition in the Philippines. And it's more and more serious now. So this trust also means that the Philippine government, the malnutrition is still a significant problem in the Philippines, and the Philippine government and other social groups or development agencies have been trying to develop all kinds of interventions to deal with the problem of malnutrition in the Philippines, at least in the last 30 years or more. So that's provide rich data for me to think with this issue of coexisting solutions. Okay, so now let me briefly introduce these 5 projects that I target. So the first one is Iron Mixed Rice Project. It's developed by a public research center called Food and Nutrition Research Institute in the Philippines. And the main idea is to use a kind of synthetic iron to mix with white rice. So this is they call it iron mix. So it's the mix of synthetic iron with white rice powders. And then mix this with ordinary rice So that's become this final product. And this is the laboratory that they developed the project in FNRI, so the Food and Nutrition Research Institute. And the second one is a school gardening project. And it's a collaboration between a development agency called CIRCA and a public university called UPLB, University of Philippines at Los Baños, and the regional government in Laguna province. So the main idea is to set up school gardens in different schools and use the gardening produce, those vegetables, to support the school feeding program in each school. So as you can see, this is one of the school feeding center in one of the schools. So they also aim to get the entire community involved and as a way to promote home gardening in the community. So the third one is the Golden Rice Project. So it's developed by the International Rice Research Institute, and it's a genetically modified rice for vitamin A deficiency. It's just like this. So this is golden rice, and it has been. So it was commercialized in the Philippines in 2021 after more than 30 years of research. So this news article is in 2000 when the project was transferred from Europe to EU. So as you can see here, so it says biofortification as best solution to the problem of vitamin A deficiency among Filipinos. And this is the field in Europe. So the fourth project is it's called Field Rice, Field Rice Responsible Campaign. So it's led by a public research center in the Philippines called the Philippine Rice Research Institute. And it's also a government initiative policy. And the main idea is to target consumers' responsibility to eat more brown rice as a way to improve their health. So as you can see, so they have very beautiful and fancy promotional material trying to attract consumers. And they also try to increase the market access of brown rice in the Philippines. And they also try to develop a new kind of milling machine. So it's a pato style milling machine. So it's a bicycle, and so you can use it in your household. And if you want to eat brown rice, you can just mill your own brown rice, and then you can do exercise at the same time. But it's not commercialized yet. So the final one is called the Moringa Industry Development Initiative. So it's a private sector-based initiative. But many members in this initiative has good connections with the Philippine government. So the main idea is to use this tree. So it's moringa tree, and the leaves of moringa tree is very nutritious and has been utilized as a way to improve people's nutrition status for more than a century in the Philippines. So it's a commonly known tree in the Philippines and usually grown in their backyard. But what's the idea of this initiative is that they want to create a moringa industry. So they want to grow moringa in a large scale, in an industrial scale, and then in an organic way. But then they want to produce this kind of highly concentrated moringa product, so like the capsule or the tea. And so they think this is a way to deal with the problem of malnutrition. So they have annual meetings. They bring together different stakeholders to discuss the issue. And as you can see in this meeting in 2019, so it says produce, produce, promote, process, malunggay. So malunggay is the Filipino name of moringa. Moringa, a solution to malnutrition. Okay, I can continue, right? Okay. Okay, so this is the summary of these 5 projects, and this table also shows why I selected these 5 specific projects. So at the time when I was in the Philippines, they were kind of relative the most successful projects at the time in the Philippines, and they were all supported or developed by public research agencies or development agencies or private sector initiative with good connection with government. And at the same time, they were also, all of them targeted one specific problem. Thank you. that is the inadequate intake of nutrients. But they use different theory of change, and that also means they employ different kinds of agri-food approach, from crop breeding to whole grain consumption or dietary diversification. Okay, so let me, after briefly introducing these 5 projects, let me talk a little bit more about my field work summary in the Philippines. So I mainly collected the data in a 2-year period from 2017 to 2019. And at the time, my status was a visiting research fellow in CIRCA. So the full name of CIRCA is Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture. So it's an intra-governmental agency created by the Ministry of Education of most Southeast Asian countries. So it has a unique standing in the Philippines. And being a visiting research fellow there also means that I have a better access to other public research centers or the Philippine government or other NGOs in the Philippines. And I've also worked on other projects with other CIRCA colleagues or help them organize other activities. So I was kind of immersed in the development world in the Philippines regarding agricultural development and the issue of malnutrition. So for example, I helped organize an international conference on national nutrition, agriculture and persistence. I also gave a seminar talk in CIRCA. And I was also invited as a social science expert in a food systems policy workshop held by another development agency. So I also, so for the data collection, I employed different ways to collect data. I interviewed project leaders, government officials, and different kinds of NGOs and scholars in the Philippines. And I also participate in or observe different events or activities held by these 5 projects. And I also collect archival data from including policy reports, scientific journal articles, and published research reports or news articles to trace the history of these 5 specific agri-food approaches. And finally, I also carried out some statistical analysis based on the Philippine National Nutrition Survey. Okay, so now let me get into the findings of my research. So I'm going to introduce my findings following this analytical framework. So beginning with the historical legacy of the coexistence of solutions. So the takeaway point for this part of analysis is that all agri-food approaches have long history, and these different coexisting solutions interacted in different ways in each historical period. So let me show you what. So this is a summary of the findings for this aspect. So as you can see, I began with these 5 specific contemporary projects. And all of them, they are based on different kinds of agri-food approaches, from biofortification, fortification, slow gardening, ground-rice consumption, and food supplementation. So then I trace back the history of each of these agri-food approaches and try to identify whether there were similar projects or policies in the history that tries to target the issue of malnutrition in the Philippines. And as you can see, I have identified 3 historical periods from 1930s to 2000. And what is important, so the first important thing is that in different historical periods, the kind of malnutrition that the governments tried to target is different. So in the 1930s, it was vitamin B1 deficiency. And in the 1960s, it was protein and energy deficiency. And in the 1990s, it was micronutrients deficiency. And so in each historical period, so for each approach, there were different projects emerging as a policy solution for this particular malnutrition in these different historical periods. And for example, for brown rice campaign, in each historical period, the Philippine government has tried to utilize brown rice consumption as a way to solve the problem of malnutrition. So I published a journal article based on this, so if you are interested, you can look it up. Okay, but if we focus on a specific historical period and try to look into the relationship between these coexisting solutions and the problem, then what it will show. So this is the summary. So I know you cannot see the words in, so that's fine. It's because that's not my intention. So you don't need to see the words on these small circles. But what I want to highlight is actually the pattern in each different historical period. So the pattern is different. So that means these coexisting solutions, they had different relationship in different historical period. For example, in the 1940s, in the 1930s, there were three Agrifood solutions to the issue of beriberi, so that's vitamin B deficiency. Or in Chinese, it's 脚气病. And so these three solutions that they build upon each other to some extent. But at the same time, they also competed with each other in the policies arena. So it's mainly between the army, they try to promote the brown rice consumption, and the nutrition community, they try to promote rice fortification of vitamin B1. So this is in 1930s. And then in the 1970s, the situation was different. So this was in the martial law period in the Philippines under the Marcos regime. So the political rationale, political consideration was the top priority for any policy decisions. So that's why what they cared about at the time was rice self-sufficiency and a specific kind of nutrition governance for malnutrition in the Philippines. And that's how they brought together different solutions, different agri-food solutions based on different ideologies together as a policy solution to the issue. And all of them are politically motivated and have some political considerations behind these solutions. And in the 1990s, the situation again became different. So the main issue at the time was micronutrient deficiency, and that was influenced by the international trend. So in the 1990s, the international nutrition developed communities began to really focus on the issue of micronutrients deficiency. And that's why the Philippine government, they brought together nutritionists and different scholars to set up a national micronutrition action team. And they brought together 2 or 3 different agri-food approaches together into this initiative as the main solution to micronutrient deficiency. But at the same time, at the margin, there were other government-related social groups. They were developing other projects, like the Golden Rice Project or other kinds of pork breeding or brown rice campaign. But they were not at the center of this policy solution. Okay, so I have written a paper regarding this aspect of analysis, and it's under review now. So I'm happy to share the draft with you if you are interested, and I can also let you know when it's published. So let me move to the second aspect of the analysis. So this is diverse ways of localization. So what I mean by localization is how this project could become successful projects and operational projects. And I try to highlight 2 specific factors. So one is the physical and symbolic features of the food utilized in each project, such as brown rice or iron fortified rice or moringa. So the physical and symbolic features of the food. And then there's also the science and technology involved in mobilizing the project. So again, this is the summary of my discoveries. For these 5 projects, you can see they have all of them mobilized and developed different kinds of science and technology. And the kind of different physical and symbolic features also influence how this project could be operational and could be a successful project. So for example, for the iron per mix rice project, the metallic test is a key factor. So metallic test, it means if you can taste iron when you eat the rice. So that's a metallic test. So that's an iron. So it's kind of the taste of iron. So if the consumers can taste iron when they eat iron fortified rice, then they will not accept the rice anymore. So that is a crucial issue for this project. And that's why they need to have the kind of sensory analysis test to make sure that the kind of iron mixed rice they produce tastes just like the ordinary white rice. And there are also other efforts. And for example, for the Be Responsible campaign, so the brown rice campaign, so the cultural perception of brown rice was a critical issue because brown rice was traditionally be seen as a rice with dirty look, and it's a backward kind of diet, and it's not fashionable. And it's not. So that's why they need to reverse the cultural perception of brown rice in the Philippines as a way to help consumers to accept the rice. And then I don't have the image, but for the science and technology side, the brown rice campaign has also need to develop new kinds of knowledge to promote brown rice. So for example, one important way is the nutritionists in the Philippines, they need to develop different recipes and cooking tips for consumers to follow. Because if you want to cook brown rice, it takes longer time. And if you want to eat brown rice, because it tastes just different from white rice. So you may need to invent different ways of eating brown rice with other food or okay. So if you follow the trajectory of the development trajectory of each project and see how these different factors are combined together, brought together into motion and to become so the project could become an operational project, then it would look like this. So it's a comparison between just two projects, the brown rice campaign and iron fortified rice project. And usually people would think brown rice campaign is a kind of social innovation because it's targeting consumers with some kind of promotions and try to influence consumers' behaviors. And they would think iron fortified rice project is a technological innovation because it's based on a particular technique of fortification. But as you can see, as I have talked about, it's actually a combination between social and technical aspects in every product and in every project. But the way the science and technology and the social considerations could be bring together is different in each project. So for example, for the brown rice campaign, as I mentioned, the key is to how to transform the public rejection of brown rice into a public acceptance of brown rice. So that's why they have some kind of social media campaign trying to promote brown rice consumption as a fashionable thing, a new thing. And or they try to invoke the morality of consumers. They try to say that if you eat brown rice, it's more responsible for your health, but also for Filipino farmers, like that. But at the same time, they also they also need to look into the science and technology of surrounding brown rice. So one important innovation is packaging. Because the shelf life of brown rice is much shorter than white rice. And especially in the humid environment in the Philippines, it's critical. So they need to invent different kinds of packaging technology to help consumers to store brown rice in their household. Or And that's why they try to develop new kind of milling machine. Because if you have this kettle-style milling machine, then you can mill brown rice wherever you want. So you don't need to store brown rice. Okay. And in contrast, for the iron fortified rice project, so the project mainly cared about one thing, that is the existence of iron, the synthetic iron, from the production of iron premix to the consumption and digestion of brown iron fortified rice. So that means they need to make sure the synthetic iron remain stable in the iron premix rice along each stage of the way from production to consumption. So that's why they also need to have some cooking test. So they need to test whether after cooking the synthetic iron remains stable inside rice. And finally, they also need to have some digestive bioavailability test to make sure that the synthetic iron could really be absorbed and digested by human body and become the kind of iron that human body could use. So I call it configuration. So it's two kinds of configuration. So I have also written a paper for this analysis, and we'll present in a conference in November. So I'm happy to share the draft with you if you are interested. Okay, so for the final aspect of analysis is shared infrastructure. And mainly three types of infrastructure. So epistemic infrastructure, research infrastructure, and mobilization infrastructure. So by epistemic infrastructure, what I mean is that how do the governments in the Philippines and also the development agencies and other social groups, how do they know there is a problem of malnutrition? And how significant the issue, the problem is in the Philippines? And this mainly refers to the long history of the Philippine National Nutrition Survey. So this may be the most comprehensive survey, the most comprehensive kind of nutrition survey in the global south or developing countries. So there is a long history, and the survey began quite early in the 1950s. So at the beginning, it was a nutrition survey for armed forces of the Philippines, and then they carried out different surveys in different regions in the Philippines. And finally, in 1978, it's carried out the first nationwide nutrition survey, and they also created a research agency specifically overseeing and responsible for carrying out the survey. So it's Food and Nutrition Research Institute. Since 1978, they carried out the survey every 5 years until now. It's continuous. And they also expand the size of the survey, and sometimes they do an updating survey in between the 5 years. And the sample size of the survey is also expanding every time. So right now, in the most recent survey, I think there are more than 10,000 households involved in each survey. So it's a very large scale survey in the Philippines, and it also collects different dimensionals of data. So this is the anthropometric survey. So that means they draw blood samples from respondents, and they also collect other biomarkers from respondents. But they also publish socioeconomic data survey. So that's about the socioeconomic background of each household. And they also have a dietary survey. That is, they try to ask respondents. They ask respondents to recall their diet in the past 7 days, and they even measure the food waste of each household. It's a very time-consuming and energy-demanding job. I have talked to one of the surveyor. It's not a good job. Okay, but But it's not enough to just generate the knowledge. They need to disseminate the knowledge to the governments and other development agencies. So that's why they have this kind of event. So it's called annual nutrition seminar. So they invite different stakeholders from governments, NGOs, scholars, local nutrition workers, and different local NGOs together in this room. And it's a big room, and it's a 2-day seminar. And they just tell you what's the problem of malnutrition in the Philippines right now, and what we should do. So they have different discussion sections. So what we should do about this problem. So, and they also have regular media coverages of the problem of malnutrition in the Philippines based on the National Nutrition Survey. So this is what I call extended infrastructure. And for research infrastructure, it's mainly involved three sectors. So that's public sector, academia, and non-profit sector. So they all have some kind of capacity to support each project in terms of funding, research, and intervention. But what is important is the positioning of each project in this research infrastructure. So, for example, the school gardening project that I studied. So it's a collaboration between these three sectors: the government, the public university, and the development agency. So they have a lot of resources. So they have different kinds of resources they can mobilize as a way to support the development of the project. But in contrast, for like the Moringa Industry Development Initiative, it's a private sector-based initiative. Although they have good connections with the government, they don't have, because of the position, they don't have good connections with like the academia or the public research centers. And that's why they were struggling to have even some basic knowledge produced by these organizations, such as if you want to grow moringa on a large scale, so what should be the position and what's the distance between two trees should be. So even just these simple questions, they don't have the answer because there's no research support for them, and they also don't have money to do their own research. Or like the food safety issues of moringa, that was a big issue for them. But even the time when they were trying to promote brown rice, moringa capsule, they still don't have a clear answer in terms of food safety issues. Okay, so this is research infrastructure. And the final one is what I call a mobilization infrastructure. So maybe I mean all kinds of meetings for development actors in the Philippines. And that's what I have been attending when I was in the Philippines. So in these different meetings, what they have, the function of the meeting, there were multiple functions, but one is to demonstrate solutions and exchange ideas. But one key, there's key function of these meetings is to insight or involve the emotions of these development actors or this audience. So this table and this chart, I have shown this chart before. So this chart is an iconic example. So in each meeting I have attended, if it's about malnutrition, and usually in the beginning of the meeting, so a presenter will present this chart. And then the presenter will say that, hey, look, so the situation of malnutrition has not been improving in the past 3 decades. So what have we been doing? So we have been failing other Filipinos. So we really need to make more effort and come up with more solutions, more effective solutions to solve the problem. Otherwise, the next generation of Filipinos will be doomed. So, and sometimes they bring up the economic cost of malnutrition in the Philippines. So what I mean is that this kind of meetings, they invoke a sense of, sometimes it's shame or guilt for this audience, or a sense of responsibility, and demand more actions, more solutions. And that's why I call it a mobilization infrastructure. Okay, so let me quickly wrap up. So this is the next slide. So I'm proposing a new framework. It's called public solution and framework. And there's 3 components of this, and there are also some policy implications. And I want to use the project that I'm working on as a postdoc here as an example to show how I've been thinking that this project it's about net zero transition in Taiwan, and particularly the just transition policy making in Taiwan. So using the analytical that I have introduced, so there could be some questions regarding like the issue of just transition policy making in Taiwan. So for example, for the historical legacy, we could ask, so what has been policy solutions to labor impact in the previous industrial transformations? So what kind of policy solutions has been proposed or been implemented? And were there some marginalized solutions that was not at the center of in the policy arena, but that may be useful this time when we try to address the issue of energy transition? Over epistemic infrastructure. So what kind of data do we use to know what the problem is? Do we have enough data to know? And for the mobilization infrastructure, so who are included as an audience or as in developing and promoting solutions? Who are the development actors? They are included as people who have the capacity to improve our lives. So I will just end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson, and give us several years of explorations in the Philippines. Let's open questions here from audience. Any questions you have for Shunnan or comments? Let me ask one first. So when you try to talk to those either agencies or scholars over there, so what's the most challenging you face at that point? Can you share?
So the most challenging thing for me was actually to following 5 projects at once. So as you can see, they were kind of developing at the same time, or some in a different stage. So I need to, so the first difficulty is to approach them. So I need to approach them in different ways. And as a visiting research fellow in Circa, and as a PhD student in the US, that's hell. So there was a strange positioning as a Taiwanese but studying in the US. So that's an interesting positioning for them, for these research agencies to some extent. But so usually they welcome me as because for me to so they welcome me to understand more about their project. So they were quite welcome. But at the same, but because I need to collect data from all of them, and they may be carrying out different events or activities in different regions or different locations across the Philippines. So I need to juggle between different events and try to decide which one is more important and I need to attend. So that's a kind of practical challenge for me. Yeah.
So when you try to talk to them, for example, in the beginning your overall project from rice or nutrient perspective. So this kind of different rice grow over there, how about the impacts of climate changes on that, especially typhoon, and then we know other typhoon attack Philippines. So have you tried to talk to them about from climate perspective?
So at the time, no, I didn't. But they brought up the issue to me. Okay. So because I didn't focus on climate change at the time, but climate change was a big issue for them. So but just to clarify that, so for all these projects, I didn't study the impact of them. So I didn't know what's the real impact of them. So because of the research limitation, the limitation of the design of the research. So I focused on the design, the upstream part. So that is how the project was developed, and especially what kind of support they got to develop the project. But I didn't get the chance to really assess the impact of all these projects. And some of them did have some impact assessments on their own, but some of them didn't, and that's another issue. But for climate change, so malnutrition was a significant issue, but at the same time, climate change was also a significant issue for these development agencies or researchers. So right now, what they are envisioning is really the kind of solution or project that is multi-dimensional. That is, they could address multiple development problems at the same time. So for example, for the school gardening project, they do not only want to only focus on malnutrition. The researcher of the team, they actually they envision that if the project could be operating in a community, that could also become part of their climate resilient aspect. So that means that the kind of school gardens or home gardens could support them through different kinds of extreme climates or to deal with other disasters.
Yes, thank you for your sharing, and then thank you for interest in IPCS. As you know, the IPCS is an interdisciplinary institute, and you are one of the expertise in your first slide is you have the interdisciplinary training or the exchange, that kind of experiences with many other different scientists. Can you share with us your experiences in that part before? And then can you tell our students the most difficulty and most challenging and most beautiful part of the interdisciplinary experiences? Thank you.
Sure. Let me see. So let me use school gardening again as an example. So in that project, there were nutritionists, public nutritionists, there were agricultural scholars, and there were some economists involved in the projects to develop different kinds of impact assessment research. So I need to. So at one point I was kind of part of the team. So when they go to the schools, I follow them and help to collect data or try to talk to the teachers there and to how to set up the school gardens there. So for the kind of collaboration would be for the agricultural scholar. So what the scholar was interested in was how to set up a school garden based on organic agriculture that is effective and that could really make sure that they could grow enough vegetables. And for the nutritionist in that team, what she's interested in is what kind of vegetables are useful for dealing with the specific malnutrition issues in this particular school. And so there was a mismatch between their goals. And what I have been doing at the time was actually trying to bring together different goals of in that project and trying to transfer their goals into for the other side. So for example, for the nutritionists, they do not really care about the stability of vegetables that could be grown in a particular environment. But that was a critical issue for the agricultural scholar, especially the organic farming scholar. And so I kind of connect I identify their differences and try to bring them into conversation and identify the common goals that may be achieved, like what kind of vegetables may be a more feasible product to grow. And I also try to bring in some social aspects in terms of how the school is operated and how we need to, what kind of involvement of the community may be able to really sustain the operation of the school garden. And so the challenge for me is that there must be lots of communications, and those communications requires different terminologies from different disciplines, but we need to identify some common languages that could be used across different disciplines, and also try to identify really the fundamental, the common goals that everyone is interested in. I think that's one example I can share. But I want to say, for each project, my positioning for each project was different. So sometimes I just need to have the kind of scientific background knowledge that I can really ask the question that matters for these scientists, and then they will be interested in responding to my questions, and that was good enough.
In the five projects you mentioned, I think they not only worry about the macronutrition but also the micronutrition. For example, the fortified iron project. I'm wondering why they select iron, why not other micronutrition?
So so I think I didn't. So that's also let me see. So there were lots different kinds of micronutrients like vitamin B1. So the golden rice project was for vitamin B1, and they have historically speaking, they have identified four or five critical micronutrients, and they have developed different kinds of projects actually for different kinds of micronutrients deficiency. So it's just I targeted this particular project because it was more successful at the time. But meanwhile, it's also important to recognize that for all these projects, they try to position themselves as a solution that could address multiple types of malnutrition, etc. For example, for the iron premixed rice project, right now what they are developing is, they call it a multi-vitamin fortified rice. So they want to use other synthetic zinc and synthetic vitamin A and put together with the iron premixed rice. So that could be a kind of a multivitamin, but it's a rice. Yeah.
You mentioned a very interesting challenge. When you talk about, you sort of investigate 5 projects at the same time in the foreign country. Okay, right? Because you have 5 projects.
Yes.
And you start the investigation at the same time.
Yes.
And how did you encountering all these kind of cross-cultural issues and engage into the community and really observe and collect the data you need?
So I didn't really get into the community. That's the first thing.
Okay.
So because and actually, so for these projects, they operate in a different scale. So some, like the brown rice campaign, they do not interact with a specific community. It's kind of a nationwide campaign. So there's no community involved. And for iron premixed rice project, the community was not their main focus. Their main stakeholders are local millers, rice millers. They need to try to bring in to help them produce milling, iron fortified rice. So, but in terms of different cultures. So one interesting thing, and that's why the projects finally look like this, is that I bump into same kind of people in each project. So those development actors, so in this project, I met these nutritionists. And then when I talk to another project, they say, oh, I know that's nutritionists. We also work with them. So, and then I realized that for all these projects, they actually have many connections with each other in the same, I call it development tool. So that a group of Filipinos, they have the capacity to improve other Filipinos' lives. So that's my definition. But yeah, thank you.
Yes. Okay. One last question from Shane. Hi. Sorry, I just saw you show some new slides behind this, so I'm quite curious about the future work. So you mentioned briefly about the net zero, and you're going to apply the problem solution analytical framework in your future work. Is that your plan? So basically, what's your future plan in IPCS?
So I have multiple plans, but for the biggest, so the main one in terms of climate change. So yeah, I'm going to build on what I've been doing as a postdoc for the net zero transition project. So what I plan to look into is the relationship between the impact of climate change and the governmental policy making of net zero transition. And so how these two forces or trends influence the agricultural development, agricultural policy making in Taiwan. So how agricultural policy making in Taiwan need to respond at the same time to the net zero transition policy making and also to the climate impact. So in the long term, I would like to do a comparison with the situation in the Philippines. Yeah, as well.
All right. Thank you. And usually our IPCS students usually have a lot of questions, but I guess they will ask you during